All right, welcome to my class on numbers. This is a beginner's course to numbers, although I think I'm going to be covering quite a bit. But the question is, why numbers? Why would you use numbers? You have Google Sheets, you have Microsoft Excel, and basically numbers comes down to a few reasons why I like it. First of all, it has a user-friendly interface, for organizing your data. It's feature-rich, yet simple enough for beginners. I went to Excel, and then I went back to numbers, looking at the different way to do stuff. And I just think numbers is so much easier. On top of that, it syncs with iCloud, making all of your documents available on all of your different devices, including another Mac. You can collaborate with other people, in fact. It has a similar interface to the other iWork apps, such as Pages and Keynote. So if you learn numbers, you already have a pretty good leg up into learning Pages and Keynote. They pretty much all work the same, or their layout is the same. And probably my favorite thing is, compared to Google Sheets, it's an actual app. I'm not a fan of web apps, going through the browser kind of thing. I know that seems to be the way that everything is going, but there's nothing like an actual app. And, so you're dealing with an actual app on all of different devices. I will be demoing this primarily on my Mac. I'm going to bring up my iPad a little bit, but it is going to be on my MacBook Air with macOS Sonoma. Although this does work, numbers has been around for a while, it does work on older Macs as well. Also, I do plan on coming out with smaller self-contained videos that are going to be on my site for the individual devices. So even though I'm going to be working primarily on the Mac, you can look for a video on how numbers works on the iPad or numbers works on the iPhone in the near future. So those are all going to be, that's my grand plan with this. And I'd like, if this actually turns out to be pretty good, I plan on doing this with Pages and Keynote as well as any other apps. So why numbers? Lots of reasons. Now, before we get into that, let me introduce myself. I am Dan Wassing from Dan's Tutorials. I create easy-to-follow video tutorials for your Mac, your iPad, your iPhone, Apple Watch. I also host these webinars on a regular basis. Whoop. I'm going to mute everyone again here.
Yeah, I got them all open.
There we go. So basically, I create these easy-to-follow video tutorials. I host these classes and webinars on a regular basis, usually 2 or 3 a month. And if you like what you see here, all I do is just ask that you take a look at Dan's Tutorials. You can become a member of my site, and that's how you can help support my efforts. It is a small business, so just know that you're helping a small business. And I might talk a little bit more about that towards the end or at the end of the thing if you're interested. But check out Dan's Tutorials for more information. All right, enough about me. That's not why you are here. You're here to learn about numbers. So the first thing that we're going to take a look at is what our agenda is. What we're going to first look at is the interface. How do we navigate around the numbers interface? And this is key in how it works with Pages and Keynote. I'm not going to open up those other apps, but they all kind of work the same. So if you learn numbers, like I said earlier, you're going to have a leg up in the other apps. So we're just going to see how the numbers interface works. From there, we're going to take a look at working with tables and cells. I mean, this is the heart of numbers or any spreadsheet, your tables and cells. And then from there, we're going to look at how we work with formulas. Just do the basic stuff. And then we're going to look at how we add and edit charts. We're also going to take a quick look at pivot tables. Numbers does do pivot tables. So I'm going to show you how that works. They have a nice little template for it, and we're just going to kind of play around with that just a little bit. And then from there, what we're going to do is take a look at how we can import and export, as well as share and collaborate. So I could work on this with someone else if I wanted to, work on a spreadsheet. So that's going to be what we're going to cover. So as I mentioned, we have a lot to cover here. So let's go and get started. The first thing that we're going to do is look at how we navigate around numbers. And what I'll do at the end of this topic here is I'll open it up to a few questions as well. So navigating. Now I'm going to go to my Mac here. Like I said, I'm going to basically demonstrate this on my Mac, and should be able to all see my Mac, and I didn't ask, you can all hear me all right, correct? We're all good? Perfect. All right, so this is basically what we're looking at here is numbers. Now, before I go and take a look at this, I'm just going to minimize this. Let's first look at when you open up numbers. When you open up numbers, in Keynote as well, there's actually a little template chooser. And then from here, what you're able to do is choose from these different templates. And Apple has a number of different templates here. You can see we have some basic spreadsheets, personal spreadsheets, business spreadsheets. And the nice thing about this is these spreadsheets are great to learn on. I went and looked at Microsoft Excel spreadsheets. Theirs are so basic, where these are, I would say, they're basic, but they do get a little bit on, they kind of show you what it can do. So I think these are much better. And it's a great way to try out different tools. We're actually going to be taking a look at one of these. One of them here is Pivot Table. And you can see it actually has instructions and all that and how it works. So they did a really nice job with these templates. At the end of the presentation, I'll even show you how you can make your own templates. So if you have a spreadsheet that you want to use over and over for different things, you can create a template out of it. So we'll look at that towards the end. That's going to be under our sharing, that kind of thing. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to choose a template. So let's just go with a blank template here. And we can see it just opens up. Now, what I'm going to do is actually switch to a different spreadsheet so we can see, the layout. Again, we're looking at the layout here. So what am I looking at? Well, basically, I think it's divided into, I would say, 3 different panes. What we have here is the toolbar up at the top. And this is where we can add our objects such as text, shapes, a table. All those are called objects. So I can go and add I can go and add text, I can go and add shape. I can zoom in and out. So if this is 160%, let's just go, if it was a large spreadsheet, you can zoom in and out there. So just really nice, easy to use. This is where we share. And this is where we go and format it and organize it. And this layout is customizable. So if I control click on it, get the contextual menu, I can actually customize this. You may be familiar that you can customize the toolbar in the Finder. Well, you can also customize this toolbar on the Mac, and even on the iPad version, you can customize the toolbar. So you can put your own tools in here. So if you never use pivot tables, you can remove that tool and go and put something else in there. On top of that, what we have is what I call the canvas. Apple calls it the sheet. And essentially, this is where all of our objects go. So what we have here is we have a table here, but I could easily go and add a shape. And now I just add this shape and I drag it where I want. It's a canvas. And I can place this, like I said, anywhere I want. I can move the table anywhere within this canvas or sheet. And then when we go over to the right, the third pane is our format and organize. So if I click on format here, it's going to disappear. I click on it again, it shows. And this allows us to format whatever we have selected. So I have this table selected, actually I have the cell selected, so I can format the table, I can format the cell, I can format the text within that cell, and then I can also arrange it, which means I can categorize it and things like that. So this is all under the format. And then we can also organize it, which allows me to filter it and sort it, as well as categorize it. We'll talk a little bit more about that later on. But basically, that's what we have here. Toolbar, sheet, format, and arrange. Those are my 3 different pieces. Let me change the color of that since I'm on a white background there. So toolbar, and those are my 3 pieces. And that's essentially how it all works. Now, the last thing I want to mention is, with this, we have sheets up here. So just like with Microsoft Excel, I can go and add another sheet in here, just click on the plus, and then we have another sheet. So another piece of canvas. Add another one. And these sheets here, what you can do is you can link them together. So when I talk about formulas, I'm going to show you how you can take this cell here and have it link over to this sheet. Or you can have it link over to this sheet, a cell in that sheet. And that's all done with formulas. Now, you cannot link to an outside document. In Excel, you can. Excel definitely has its advantages, don't get me wrong. But I think for most people, numbers will do a job, and I think it's just easier to use. So Excel, yeah, I can link to an outside spreadsheet. Numbers, you cannot. All I can do is link a cell or put a formula in here that links to an internal table or anything like that. So that's basically all we can do. But that's the layout that we have with numbers. And again, if I were to open up Pages or Keynote, you'd pretty much be looking at the same thing. They might have a couple other things in there because obviously it's a different program, but for the most part, that's how it works. So, anyone have any questions on that? That was pretty simple, but it's nice to get an overview of how it all works. The next thing we're going to be looking at is actually tables. So we'll focus on tables a little bit. We're good? All right. So with tables, what we can do is, like I say, this is the heart of a spreadsheet. So if I go over here to this spreadsheet here, if we look, you're going to see that I have a table here. Now, the difference between Excel and Pages is Excel, this table is the whole sheet, where in Pages, or I'm sorry, in Numbers, in Numbers, what this is I can move this around, and I can put text over here. In Excel, you can't necessarily do that. You have to add text to a cell. So I think that's probably the biggest difference between them, and I think that makes it a lot easier to use. If I were to go into, let's go and open up the pivot table. I'm not going to go into the pivot, but you're going to, I'm sorry, you're going to see that I have here a table. I have a table, and I can move these around. And then I have text here. This is just a text box. You can't do that in Excel. Everything has to be within a cell one way or another. So if you wanted to move things around, if I wanted to move this down here, it makes it very difficult to do because it moves the whole row over, and this would move down, this would have to move down. You just don't have this free form to lay things out as you want. And I think that's a big advantage to using Pages. So if we go back over to my other document here, I have my table here. So the table comprises of rows, columns, and cells. I mean, that's the basic thing of a spreadsheet. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to figure out what we're selecting. So when I go and click on a cell here, you're going to see that it has a little green border around it. That means that I'm selecting that cell. Now from here, what I can do is I can select more. If I go into the lower right-hand corner or the upper left-hand corner, you're going to see those little hollow circles. That allows me to select more than one cell. So now I have these cells here all selected. And if I go and format them, it's going to format all of those cells. So we just go and click on it, take this arrow and drag it down, drag it across. We select what we want, and then we can format it. That's how we select our cells. Now on top of that, what we can do is we can select our columns and rows. So a column is vertical. So when we look at this, you're going to see that that is a column. Our rows go horizontal. So we have our columns and rows. Now, if you wanted to select a column, what you do is just go up to the top here and you're going to see this B. You will not see this B if the table is not selected. So how do we select a table? Basically, all we have to do is just click in it. You're going to see that I don't have anything up here. It's all blank up here. But when I click on it, oops, I got to click on a cell. Now I can see the columns and I can see the rows. So it only shows when you have it selected. Now, once you have it selected, what you can do is you can actually go to that column, click on it, and now that entire row is selected. So from here, what I could do is I could go and format that row. I could add a border to it, anything like that. I can select a row the same way. Just click on it, and now that entire row is selected. If you want to add another row, you can do that as well. There's that little hollow arrow. It has a white circle. Click and drag, and now I've just selected more rows. Same thing with columns. If I select this column, I just take this and select it, and now I can go and format that. So we easily can select rows, columns. We can increase our columns, our selection. And then if we want to select a table, now remember, right now I have this selected. Well, I want to resize the table. How can we do that? The way that we do that is we need to select the table. And the way that you select the table, I find the easiest way is you go over to this little circle here. And when I click on that, you can see that there are no cells that are selected. But you're going to see that I have little hollow points there, which means I can take these and drag it. It's not adding any rows or columns, it's resizing it because I have this table selected. So I could take this one here and make it smaller, larger. And the way, again, you do that is you click on this little circle. That's what I find the easiest. So it deselects all of your cells, and then it will go and put these there, and you can go and drag and drop and place them where you want. So we select our cell, drag what we want. We can select our column. We can select our row. We can increase that selection. And then if we want to select the table, we go up here, and now I can drag that table. Now, that's fine and dandy, but what about adding rows or moving rows? I see that Judy asked about adding a row. To add a row or move a row, basically let's talk about adding rows first. To add a row, all you have to do is just go up to the top here to the right of where all of your column headers are. You're going to see this 2 vertical lines here. I'm going to move this over. That's how you just drag it. Again, this is key to working with a table. I just drag that over. And now what I can do is I can drag this, and you're going to see it's adding rows. I'm sorry, columns. Drag it back. So we can do the same thing down here. I drag this down, and I can add and remove rows. What about moving them? You can do that as well. To move them, what you do is you long press on the column. Let's go and look at columns first. Let's say I wanted D to be before C. What I do is I long press on it. Let's see here, try it again. You're going to see that it kind of lifts up. See if I can do that, show that again. I click on it. It might be a double click. And then I click on it again and hold. You're going to see that it kind of lifted up here, which means I can take this and move it where I want. So I'm just dragging it where I want. Oops, I made a table out of it. You can drag it outside of there too, so let's try that again. There we go. So now I just moved it. I click and drag, and I moved it back. So you just click and drag. You can do the same thing with rows. Just click, and then you drag it, and you're going to see it lifts it up, and I can place it where I want. As you saw, you can also take a column or a couple of columns. If I wanted to select more than one, I could do the same thing, move these 2 columns, or what I can do is take these and drag them outside of that table. You're going to see it is split here. So now when I let go, it's its own table. Try that with Excel. So you have a lot of things that you can do with these little rows and columns. Resize them, add them. You can go and hide them. You're going to see that we have this little caret here. And when I click on the caret, I can go and hide a column. It doesn't delete it. All it does is hide it. So I hide it, and when you can see it is no longer there. So how do we how do we show it again? We go to the column that is after it, and then from here we can unhide it. I can also unhide all columns, and it'll just unhide everything. And another thing we can do, we go to this little caret. We do have a lot of options here. I can add a column before it, or I can add a column after it. So let's say I wanted to have a column after this. Oops, before. I selected before. But anyway, you get the idea. And you can do the same thing with rows. Move them, move a group of them, add rows before a row, add rows after a row. So that's basically how we work with the tables. Next thing that we're going to look at is how we can format them. So we know how to select them. We know how to add all these rows and columns and things like that. Now, how do we format it? Well, all we have to do is just have anything selected in the table. I could select the table itself, so I just have the table selected here. Or I can have a cell selected here. It really doesn't matter. All you have to do is just have something selected in there. And when you do that, what you do is you go make sure that your format is showing, which mine is showing, and you're going to see table. Everything under here will allow you to format that table. So what I'm able to do is change the color of the headers. I can go and make it gray. If I create my own style, which I'll show you how we can style it shortly, I can even save that and apply it to other tables. So maybe I have my corporate colors. I can save that as a style and then be able to use that on other tables. So basically, we just click what we want here. Now, below that, I can go and add some table options. Debbie, I'll get to your question here shortly, because that's coming up as well. With tables, what we can do is we can add a title. So you're going to see that we have a title here. I can hide it. I can put a caption, which is basically on the bottom. It's a title that's on the bottom. Next thing we can do is we can go with headers and footers. And this goes in with what Debbie asks, why does numbers have the first column in gray? Well, that's because that is a header. So basically what we have here is this top row that is all in blue is a header. So that kind of defines what that column is. And then the first one, let's go over here to gray. So I style it. What this style is doing is it's styling my headers as gray. So this first one here, all of these across the top, that is my header. And all of these are also my header. So this could be where you put your date and all that kind of stuff. And essentially, if we go over here to the right, you're going to see it says headers and footers. We can set how many rows and columns we want to use as a header. So if I wanted to use 2 rows, I can go and select 2. I want to use 4 rows. Maybe I have a lot of data in there that I need to label. Basically, this is all used for labels. I could have 4 rows of headers. Now, why can't I choose 5? Because I don't have that many columns. If I had another column in here, I'd be able to choose 5. It's just that this table is relatively small. We can also freeze our headers, and when what this does is, when I make this window really small, watch what happens. See how these are disappearing here? These are just going to slowly disappear. But since I froze that header, it doesn't disappear. It's not allowing that one to disappear. So when you're looking at a spreadsheet and you're looking at it relatively narrow, what you're able to do is freeze your headers and columns, headers and footers, so then they will always show. They're not going to disappear when you make your window smaller. Or let's just say you had a large spreadsheet. So let's go and add a bunch of cells in here. You're going to see how I'm scrolling over to the left. Look what stays here. I'm scrolling over to the left. That's because those are frozen. And the way that I did that again is by going down here and I checked this. So if I uncheck it, you're going to see that they disappear. Same thing with these here. Now those, if I scroll up, disappear. Well, I have no idea what this column is. It sure would be nice to know what it is. What do I have to do? I have to scroll down to get it. Well, no, actually all you have to do is make sure that that is frozen. And watch what happens. Now, this is revenue, right? When I swipe up, I can always see that that column is revenue. So that's why if you have a large table, that's where that freeze comes in handy. Another thing that you will want to do is, well, here, let's get to, so Debbie also asked, as default, the first column is gray. Why? That's because that whenever you make a new table, the first row and the first column are always headers. So if you have any kind of data, even if it's the most simplistic data, you have your labels. What does this constitute? Well, the first one tells what it is. So you should always have, I would dare say, you should always have one header, one of each. So then you can easily define what that table is. And you can go and lock them if you need to. And then the last piece is you can put a footer row down at the very bottom. And what that will do is that's like, I don't have one here, so we're going to go and add one. What this will do is this will allow you to put like a total in here. And then as you add more columns, that footer you're going to see that it's just moving along with it. So that's why you may want to add a footer. So those kind of define what the table is comprised of, if that makes sense. So yes, you can make it a different color. Judy asks, can you make it a different color? Absolutely. So let's say I wanted to have this A be a different color. So I select that first, because gray is kind of bleh, right? So all you have to do is just go over to your table here, and then I can set if I want it to be an alternating row color. I can go, let's see here, it must be under cell. We'll go under cell here. Fill. And let's go with green. And there it is. So I'm making all those cells green. So yes, you can make them a different color if you wanted to. You can even go and set how many rows and columns you want. So if you know you have 99 columns or rows, you can easily do that. You can add an outline to the table. This isn't for cells, this is for the table. So I can go and add an outline to it. I can change the color. I can change the width of it. And then we have our grid lines, which are in between. That's what these little guys are. These are called the grid lines. So if I wanted to change that, or you can see them making them disappear, you can do that. And then you have the alternating row color, which kind of makes it easy. If you look here, they're alternating rows, and you can go and change the color of that just by turning that on and off. And then you can also set how tall you want the and how wide each cell to be if you wanted to. So this is where you can really fine-tune your cells and things like that. Are they visible when you print? Yes. If you were to print this out, everything that you see on this will print. And when you do print, I don't have a slide on print, you do get a nice preview. So right there, I just hit the Command P, and there you can see what it's going to print. You do have a few options when you do print. So if I just go and say I do not want those grid lines in there, you're going to see that they are no longer there when I print. So yes, absolutely, you can select what you want to be printed and not. What I would, as I mentioned, what I would recommend doing when you make a table, add names in here. You're going to see that it's blank. All I have to do is just click in that cell, and you can go type it in there. This will come in handy when you start categorizing and things like that. Instead of categorizing by A, B, C, D, E, it's much easier to say, I need to categorize my revenue. So when you add the name in there, it'll allow you to do that. All right, so that's how tables work. I will, Judy's asking if I can just show from the beginning. So I'm going to show just a blank spreadsheet and then how we can quickly format it to do something like this. So I'm just going to copy this data, just copying the data. And now I go and choose a blank one. And there it is. By default, as I said, it's going to make one header row, one header column. We can see that those are there. So from here, I can just go and type in here date. Maybe this is the date, and this is the product. This is the quantity, and this is the price, and this is the total. And now I can just put a date in here, what the product is, how many, and I can create a calculation and it'll put it in there. And that's it. I want to change the color of these. I click on that cell there, or I can go and click on a style. Let's just go and click on that cell. I go and change the color. And I'm not really sold on that color, but we're just going to go with it. And we can see, and now what I'd like to do is make that a format, click on the plus, and now I can go and apply that style to, a new table. So we'll create a new sheet. We have a blank table here. It just put that style in there. So we can save our styles that when we go and create it. I want a table with a row of months in a row and don't have a header column, only values. You can do that as well. Let's delete this one here. So if you wanted to have no header, all you have to do is just go over to table here, and you're going to see that you have, scroll. I can go and say 0. Wrong one. 0. And now what I can do is I can put the months in here. And we'll talk about how I can easily do that with autofill shortly. But that's basically all you have to do. You can select which headers and footers you want in there. And if you wanted to add another table, you can do that as well. And now I have 2 tables on this spreadsheet. This one has a header. This one does not. They don't have to be the exact same thing. We can apply different styles to them and all that good stuff. So that's basically how tables work. And the next thing we're going to look at is cells. We're going to fine-tune, go in a little bit more depth. But essentially, we just select the table that we want, and then we make sure that we're looking at table here. This allows us to make global changes to the table. And then if we want to make changes to the cell, like color the cells, anything like that, we can do that as well. So that's basically how we format our tables, move them around, things like that. Any other questions before we get into cells? All right, we're going to take a look at cells here now. Cell basics. All right, with cells, what we can do is not only can we color it, but we can also format the data. So as an example, I have this cell here. Now, let's say this is price. I'm going to put a header in here. I like to have those in there. So I just go over to, and I select one. All right, so this first one here is price, right? For whatever product I have. Now, the thing is once I put a number in there, it just says 56. I'd like to, let's just put a few more numbers in here. All right. What I want to do is I want to format this so it has the $ in there. Maybe have 2 decimal points. In order to do that, and this is what I would recommend, what you do is you want to, because you want all of these cells to be the same, right? What you do is you select the column. And when you select the column, it's going to select everything in there. And then once you have that selected, you can go over to cell. And then from here, I can select what the format is. Now, right now, it's set to automatic. So if I put a date in here, Numbers will know that it's a date, and it'll format it as a date. But it doesn't know that this is a price. So automatic doesn't mean that it's going to figure everything out. Maybe if I put a $ in there, it might have. But what you can do is you can click on this, and you can tell it to be whatever you want. So I'm going to go with currency. And you can see that I have 2 decimal points. I like to use thousands. And for the accountants out there, you can go accounting style, which means it's going to put it into paragraphs when it's a negative number. So now we can see it's formatted. But you know what? These are all whole numbers. I don't really deal with decimal on this spreadsheet. I don't want to, it gets a little too noisy with that. So what you can do is you can go back over here and say, no decimals. It's still there. If I were to go $55.76, right? So I'm putting the whole number in there, but watch when I hit return. It rounds it up. But it still does have the complete number in there. If you go down to the lower bottom, you can see what the contents of that cell is. So I can click on this, and we can see that is actually $45. But if I go 45.23, what it's going to do is it's going to round down. So now we can see it as 45 because it's rounding down. And when I select it, it is actually 45.23. So we can still see the actual number. This is just kind of rounding up and down. Makes it a little bit cleaner when you don't need to have all that detail in there. That's how you can format that. Now, on top of that, what we can do is we can add borders to this. So let's say that what I wanted to do is make this price here. This gray line here, they're all the same, but I don't want to make this a header column, but I sure would like to make this line here just a little bit more defined. Well, we can go over here to border, and we can select which line. This can get a little tricky, but I want to have the right side of those cells. So I select the right side. I want to have that be a little thicker, so we're going to go with 2 point. And look what it did. It made that thicker. Only that right side. Now I could go select this, and I could say I want the bottom here to be a different color. And we'll make that a little thicker. And now we can see that that is a different color. So you could take this cell here, and I want all the borders around it to be red. And now we just made that one red. So you can kind of make these however you want. You just select the cells that you want. If you select more than one, now it's going to put a box around whatever I have selected. If I just select these here, it's just, whoops, I moved that. You can click and drag to move. If I select that there, it'll go and put a border around that. So that's how you can go and add borders. It can get a little messy. I'm going to actually undo these because it gets messy when you do that. But you can go and, if you need to highlight specific things, you can do that as well. Now, I don't necessarily recommend that. We'll talk a little bit more about this when we talk about formulas. What I would do is I would say, let's say you wanted to highlight this here. What you might want to do is insert a new table and then have it based off of whatever is in here. So then it's kind of stands on its own without being in that same table. That's, again, the beauty of numbers. With these different tables, we can kind of manipulate and show them how we want. Now, in addition to that, we can, we can change the color of this. We just go over here to fill. We can set what we want in there. But that's me setting color. Wonder if I wanted to conditionally highlight that, which means if it's above 0, maybe I want it to be green. If it's below 0, I want it to be red. So that I can easily see what it is. Or you could have it, if it's above 100, have it be blue. If it's between 0 and 100, don't have it do anything. If it's under 0, make it red. So then when you know it's blue, you kind of hit your goal. So that's all conditional highlighting. It'll change the color based on what the value is. And the way that you do that is you just go and select the cells that you want. So I'm just going to select the header again. So I select that whole column because I want to apply conditional highlighting to all of these columns or all these cells. And then we go over here to conditional highlighting and we go and add rules. So the first rule is if it is less than 0, make it red. That's it. Let's go and add another one. If it is greater than 100, I can change the color. Let's go with blue. And then if it's in between 0 and 100, it's just going to be the standard white. Color picker. Thank you. All right, so now those are my rules. Well, it didn't do anything. Well, that's because none of these are below 0. These don't have anything in it, so technically it's not below 0. And none of them are above 100. But now watch what happens. I'm just going to go 156 tab. Look what it did. It made it blue. Let's go with -1. It made it red. And you're going to see it put it in accounting style because that's how I set it in the format. So now I can easily see, if these were months or anything like that, I'd be able to easily see which ones I hit my goal, which ones I didn't hit anything, and, start to figure out what's going on and start analyzing my budget a little bit more, things like that. So it's pretty simple to do that, but very, very powerful. And it's all done through rules. You just select the cells that you want to apply, and then under conditional highlighting, you just go and set your different rules, and you can have multiple rules. And there's actually quite a few different options in here. I add a rule. It doesn't have to be a number. I can put a date if it's tomorrow. Let's say make a to-do list or something. You can highlight it if it's due tomorrow, if it's past due, if it's in the next specific time. Duration, or if the cell is checked or anything like that, because you can make a cell a check mark as well. It is true if it is false. So there's quite a few rules in there, and then you can apply what you want it to do when it hits that rule. So that's how we work with conditional highlights. Now, the next thing we can do is autofill. This is a very powerful tool. Makes it really easy to input months, days, things like that, consecutive numbers. So let's just say this is date. And I'm just going to go with January and February. We have to tell numbers what we want. So this is January. So all of a sudden it's going to say, oh, there's a pattern there. I get it. So you want January, February, March, April, May. Okay. So what we do is we just select the pattern. So I have both of these selected. And then you're going to see when you move your cursor, hopefully you can see this, there's a little yellow dot there. This is the autofill. And it only shows when you move your cursor over top of it. If I move my cursor away, you can see hopefully you can see it's no longer there. Move my cursor back, now it is there. So you're not going to see that all the time. And essentially all you have to do is just drag this down, and look what it's doing. Autofilling. February, March, April, May, June. I can go Monday. Let's see if it does this for Tuesday, Wednesday. So I didn't even have to put the pattern in there. I can go 1, 2. Oh, now there, didn't notice the pattern, right? But watch what happens when I go 2. I select both of them. 3, 4, 5, 6. It knows what the pattern is. So what do you think is going to happen when I go 1, 3? It's going to go 5, 7, 9, 11. So it detects what that pattern is, and you can do this up or down. So I could go 1, 2, and drag it up, and you can see it goes into the negative. So that's how we can use autofill. Another thing we can do is we can merge cells together. So let's say that this is actually one cell. Right now we can see that it is 4. Well, if you control click on it, you have a lot of options in here. One of them is merge. And when you merge it, it puts it into, this is just one cell. So when I put something in here, it's just one cell. And then if you select it, you can unmerge it. Now it's going to split back up into its 4 cells. Yes, I'll go over organize, Debbie. So that's how we can merge our cells. And as I mentioned, what we want to do is we want to make sure that we name these. So this could be the day and quantity. And I'll just go total. Whoops. That one could be total. So then what I'm able to do when I start categorizing these or organizing these, I can select what I want to do there. On categorizing, that's what we're going to look at next. I'm actually going to pull up a different spreadsheet here. Actually, go to the first table here. That's what I want to do. So I have here this spreadsheet. And if we look here, you're going to see it says January, But really, what's in that cell, remember how we can format it, what's in this cell is 1/1/2021. So if I go here to February, that is 2/1. This one could be 2/3. It's 2/1 again. But just because you see what you see in here does not necessarily mean what is in that cell. And this comes in when you start categorizing and things like that. So let's say what I wanted to do is categorize. I want to group all of my bicycles together. You're going to see that I have bicycles here, bicycles here, bicycles here. I need to categorize these. In order to do that, Debbie, all you have to do is just select it. You go over to text, and this is where you can format. I didn't get over into the text, but you can format your text here, and now it's centered. So select table. Debbie asked, how do I center the header at the top? Basically, you just select what you want. You can format the table, the cell, and the text. And being that you want to center the text, you just go and center that text there. That's how you do that. All right, so back to categorization. So what I want to do is group these by product. Well, that'd be a pain in the butt to do that, and because I'd have to move all these around and then group them and all that. Well, numbers makes it pretty easy. What we do is we go over here to organize, and then you're going to see category. So what I want to do is I want to categorize it by product. This is why it's key to naming these. Product. So if I just go here to product, because that's the name of it, watch what happens. There's all of my bicycles grouped together. Here's all my scooters grouped together. Here's all my skateboards grouped together. If you wanted them grouped by something else, maybe you want them grouped by power, you can do that. So I just go over here and I say power. If you don't categorize, remember I added more cells to this. This is what you get if you don't label them. What is column M? What is column L? So it's always a good idea to go in here and label them, because then I can go, oh, I need them grouped by power. Now they're grouped by power. You know what? I'd like to have them grouped by both. Well, we can do that as well. So we'll go back over here to product, and now we can see we have electric with bicycles. So here's all my electric bicycles, all my electric scooters, all my electric skateboards. Here's my manual bicycles and my manual scooters, all grouped together. And all I had to do is just go over here to organize categories and select how I want them organized, categorized, sorry, how I want them categorized. When they are categorized, you can even go as far as adding a calculation in there. So I'd like to know how much revenue I made with my electric here. So I just click on the little gear here, and we're going to go with sum. Electric, I made $3,834,000. Manual, I made $2,723,000. So it's also categorizing or summarizing the category totals there. We can sort as well. So we have sort here. And then from here, I can go and select what I want to sort. An easier way of doing that, I typically won't go through here. What I'll do is I'll just go up to this little caret here, and then from here you can sort them. So you can sort them ascending or descending. And then the last thing that we can do is we can filter. Now what filter does is it basically will allow you to hide certain things. So if I go add a filter here, I want to filter by, let's go with power. So now what I want to do is I only want to see my electric sales. All I have to do is just uncheck manual here and watch what happens. They disappeared. They're not showing. Click on it again. Now they're showing. Click on electric. Now all my electric is not showing. I can actually close this triangle here. So filters allow you to just go and select what you want to see. You can hide the other things. And again, key to making this all work is put in a name up here. And you can have multiple filters in here. Once you filter something, it's very easy to unfilter it. Just go and turn this off, and we are back to normal. So if I click on this little triangle, because they are categorized, you can see everything there again. So categorization is nice when you need to group things together. And we're going to take a look at another way of doing this with pivot tables in a little bit. But that's how you can go and filter your cells, per se. Debbie, are you gonna? What are you using to show? Okay, I'll show you at the end, or I'll tell people at the end what I'm using to. She asks, what are you using to show the questions from the chat? Ecamm, my favorite app of all time, and I dare say FileMaker Pro used to be my favorite app. I'm saying that Ecamm might be it, and now they have Zoom integrated with it. I'm not using Zoom. I'm using Ecamm, and it allows me to do all this nice stuff. So. All right. Any questions on cells? I mean, we covered how we can format the data in cells, add background, text color, borders, conditional highlighting, and I think all of it is relatively easy. The key to making this all work is laying a good groundwork, putting labels in here, setting your header columns and rows. Put them all in place there. Once you have good data, and this goes with in FileMaker Pro or any database or anything like that, if you have good data in, you're going to be able to get good data out. So the key to making this all work is having that good data. So if I were to uncategorize this is a relatively simple spreadsheet, but we can see once we categorize it and all that, we can really dig down and get it. But essentially, I just have my date, product, power, units, and I just go in here and put my different things in there. And then from there, I can get what I want out of it just by adding different things over here. So that's how we work with our different cells. All right, the next thing that we're going to look at here is formulas. Oh, there you go. Kathy just asked about formulas. I'm assuming that's what you're talking about, Kathy. So formulas are actually pretty easy, and I'm not going to get into. I mean, you can do a lot with formulas. Don't get me wrong. It is no Visual Basic. I'm going to dare say that is where, Excel does excel. No pun intended. At spreadsheets, but again, most of us don't need the power of Excel. So let's just say that. Let's see here. Is this in a? Okay, actual. Okay, so. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add a table in here. I'm going to add a column in here, column after. And this is the price. We don't have a price for this. So I have how many units were sold. I have the revenue. We're just going to delete this. What is that revenue based off of? I don't know. Well, what I can do is I can put in here in a price and let's see here. Let's just go with 300, and I'm just going to go with autofill all the way down. Just keep it really simple. Obviously, you want to have different prices for different products, but we're just going to keep it simple. And now what I need to do is I need to figure out the revenue. So the revenue is going to be this times that. So how do I do that? Well, essentially what you do to enter a formula is you hit the equal sign. So this cell equals what? And then from here, you're going to see we have this little pop-up, and over on the right, we have all of our different functions. We're just going to keep it simple right now. This is going to be this unit here. So it puts it in there, times the price. That's it. And when I hit return, that's what I had. Now what I'd like to do is autofill this so it goes all the way down. And there it is. I just put a formula in one cell and put it all the way down, and now that is autofilling all the way down. So now if I go and change this, let's say this was a really bad month, you can see it wouldn't change that. Or let's just say, you know what? We had a deal that month, 250, and we sold 100. And we can see it changes it on the fly. Really simple to add a basic formula. click equals, click on the cell, what the operation is, and you can add multiple operations. It follows the standard math, parenthesis. I'm not going to get into all that kind of stuff, but it follows your standard math thing. So you can use parentheses, all that good stuff. But on top of that, you're going to see that it has a number of different formulas in here that you can use as well. And what's really nice about this is they're categorized. So here are my duration formulas. So you can build some pretty exquisite formulas in here. Numeric, financial, and if you want to know what a specific formula does, so I'm going to go with financial here, and let's go with bond duration. So I select this, and then what we get down here is the actual definition of that formula. So I can actually see what it does. And then also has related calculations that are related to this. So maybe you'd use this in the same calculation. So here's a sample of it. If we look here, bond duration with the dates, and it'll give you what the what it is based on, I'm not sure what bond duration is, but that's basically what it does. You can just go in here, you can search. So anything that you want in here, how to use duration. The duration function converts a duration value into a number of minutes. So if I had a number in here, what it would do is it would convert it into a number of minutes. If we go logical, here's if. You want to use an if then, you can do that. If it's this, then that. And I think that this is really nice in the thing of you have this really nice definition of what they are with some samples in there. So it makes it really easy to do that. You can, like I said, search up here. And if I go to function here, I can show the formula as a text, and I can convert the formula to text and cell. So a lot of stuff that we can do with that, with our formulas. Now, another thing that we can do, we'll get outside of entering actual formulas, but another thing that we can do, so let's say that I'm going to add a footer down here with a total. So I go over here to table, because I need to know what the total revenue is here. This is where a footer would come in. So I go down here, 1, and we'll just go and add, let's see here. We have to add the row first. Now I make it, all right. So now this is a footer row. So what I can do is I can make this the summary of this. You're going to see right now when I select this, what it's doing is it is taking these two cells. Remember, that's what I put in there. It's D17 times E17. Well, I would actually like it to be this whole sum here. So what I do is I just click in here, I delete. I'm deleting that formula that I put in there earlier. And then if we go up here to insert, we have some basic formulas that we can put in here. So I want this to be a sum. And there's my sum. You know what? It'd be really nice to have an average in there too. So I just add another footer row. And I'm going to make 2 footer rows. And with this one, again, it's just making it what I originally had it. But now what I do is I just go up under Insert, and I say Average. So my total sale was $1,513,000. My average sale for each month was $100,000. So if I go and add another month, this footer row, let's go ahead and add some more. You're going to see that that footer always stays at the bottom. So that's the idea with the footer row and how we can add simple calculations to it. I can also add a calculation from another sheet. So I just hit equals. Remember how I clicked in a cell here? Well, if I go to another sheet, I can select that cell. And now it has that 17. If I go and change that cell on the other side, on that other sheet, it'll go and change it here. So we can intermix our cells between our different sheets. So Barry's asking if is there a way that we can move all Excel files. I'll show you how we can import Excel files at the end. I have a couple of Excel files that we'll import and show you how that works. It's not perfect, but it does a pretty good job, depending on how complicated your Excel spreadsheets are. But that's basically how we can enter formulas from other sheets. And the last thing I want to show you is when we copy something, what it does is it copies the formula. So if I go and copy this, I just hit Command X or Command C to copy it, or I Control click and I copy it. If I go over here, what do you think it's going to do when I paste it? It's going to paste that formula. Well, we don't have to do that. What we can do is we can paste the formula results if you wanted to do that. Maybe you don't want to paste the formula, you just want to paste the formula results. So if I click on this, it pasted the formula results of 79, but this is not a formula. It just pasted the results. So there is a difference. You can paste the formula or you can paste the results of the formula. So, will these formulas stay when emailing as Excel? Yes, they will. Janet asked if we could do that. Anything that you, when you export this out into Excel, all of them will do that. So, and then I see Silver asking how I'm doing the outline there. That's Cursor Pro, and I can talk about that after the after the class. So, but that's basically how we work with formulas. As you can see, it's pretty powerful. It's no Visual Basic, don't get me wrong, but it is it does a pretty good job, and I think we can get a lot. And my favorite thing with it is, I think this is just fantastic how you can look up formulas, and you can start playing around with them. You know, put it on a duplicate a sheet. If you're not sure, you don't want to screw up your sheet, you can duplicate this. Control click. I should be able. Oh, waiting for a formula. I can try it again there. I can duplicate this, and then what I'm able to do is mess around with that without actually breaking my original spreadsheet. So just duplicate it and say this is a trial, whatever you want to say, and then you don't have to worry about breaking your original tables or anything like that, and just kind of play around with them. So. All right. Any questions on formulas? Any other questions that we have? Next thing we're going to look at is charts. All right. So with charts, I think again one of these things where numbers makes it pretty easy to do. And what I like about it is when I need to go to my original table here. All right. When you create a chart, what I really like about it is it creates it as a separate object again. So remember in the beginning what I talked about, I'm making these smaller so we have more room. Let's just bring this up here a little bit. Actually, we'll just delete these. Delete selected rows. All right, so I have this nice simple table here. And what I would like to do is make a chart out of this. So pretty simple to do. This is an object. Well, the chart is an object as well. And the chart is going to pull its data from this object. So let's see how this all works. I'm just going to go chart. I want to add a chart. I select what type of chart, and you can change this afterwards. You don't, obviously it's good to get an idea of what chart you want, but you can always change it after the fact. So we're just going to go with a simple bar chart here. And there's my chart. Now, right now, it's not based off of any. What I need to do is I need to add my data. So what I do is I click on this. And now what I need to do is I need to select the cells that I want to chart. So I'm just going to go with these cells here. Let's go drag these down. And now we can see that this is all going to be part of my chart, and is my chart. It's not really telling me a whole lot yet because I don't think I selected the right things. So what I can do is I can go and change this. Like I said, I can change this after the fact. So I selected the data that I want. Here's my chart. Doesn't look good yet. It's not really telling me anything. So the next thing I want to do is I want to go and edit this. So I click on this, and now I can go and change this. I can go and select which cells I want to include or don't want to include. Well, I don't have anything in total, so we're just going to leave that out. And I click on Done, and now it's a little more refined, but I'd like to add some data in or some labels in here and things like that. So I select this, and then we go up to Format. Format is where we can go and format this chart, edit it. So this allows us to edit the data references. Where is it getting its data from? When I go over here, what it does is it allows me to format the chart, change the colors, that kind of thing. So the chart style here changes the color. It's all it's doing is changing the style of the color. I can go and add titles, borders, captions, legend. So here's my legend. Change the font, change the chart colors, add rounded corners, your basic stuff. Gaps. Do I want to have a gap in between those lines? And background, border style, and shadow. So those are pretty basic formatting options. Changing the color, making rounded corners, things like that. But what I want to do is I want to change the chart type. If we go down all the way to the bottom, you're going to see I have it as a 2D column. Well, what I can do is I can go and change this after the fact. So let's go with a 2D pie. Well, that's not really telling me anything yet. So basically, I have the wrong data selected here. So what I can do is I can go and click on it, edit my data references, and we're just going to bring this up. Let's see, oops. Plot rows as, let's try this. Getting a little better here. Product, power, units. I can go and select what the values are for the wedge, because this is a pie, and then I can go and set the style for that pie. We're going to, yes, Debbie asked, I was going to say what it might be better to do is sort this by category. Good question there, Debbie. Let's try it. So right now this is just one big mess. I think that's what Debbie's saying, and I agree. But if we go and categorize it, so I go over here to organize, remember we can categorize this. I have to select the table, and I turn on the categories. Now I'm looking at my different categories, and I'm just going to, there. Now we're looking, and let's see if this helps out. Doesn't look like it's helping out too much, Debbie. Let's see here. We can select. Sometimes you just want to start over. So the beauty of this is, being that this is just another object, I can go and delete it. It doesn't delete anything in my original table, which is what we want. The chart is just a visual representation of our data. So we can delete that chart and start over. So now let's go and add another chart. And we'll go with this one here. Add the chart data. And let's go with this here. And now we can see what the revenue was for each month. So now it's starting to give us a little bit more data in there. And yeah, I am kind of, Debbie said, it's a great point. I really don't know what I want to get out of this. So that is, part of me fumbling around. You really want to know, with charts, you obviously want to know what you're going to get out of it. So, basically arrange your stuff in here. You can see I'm starting to get some good data in here. Here's the revenue, and let's see here. If I wanted to edit that, edit, and let's try this. Now we're getting months in there, how many units, and what the product was, that kind of thing. So absolute great point. Kind of decide what you're going to be getting, what you want out of it. But my point is, it's pretty easy to make a chart. It's just another object. All we have to do is just select. So if I just go in here and delete this, try it again. delete. We just select, we can select, well, if I just select these here, so I just have that selected and I want to have a chart. There it is. There's my chart for units and power. I can select what I want, or I can create the chart and then select what I want. It might be easier just to select what you want and then create a chart for it, which is what I did here. And then from that point on, once you edit your data references, you can go over here to Format, and then you can go and change the chart type, change axes, what the series is, things like that. So charts can get much like formulas. You can do quite a bit with them. This is probably a bad example to try it with, but I think you'll still get the idea of how it all works. So, all right, let's go with, what's the next thing? Oh, pivot tables. We've got two more things here, pivot tables, and then we're going to look at sharing. I knew this would go a little bit long. So pivot tables. Pivot tables are pretty powerful, and basically think of a pivot table as like a custom-built shelf where you can arrange your books by genre, by author, things like that. And then all you have to do with the click of a button is have those books rearranged. The books are still there. Everything's still all there, but you can kind of decide how you want them shown. So that's basically what we're going to look at here. So I'm just going to go to New, and we're going to go to Pivot Table Basics. They have a great explanation of what they are, but I'm just going to go right into it, and I'm just going to delete this. This is the beauty of their templates. I'm just deleting this. And you even have a pivot table practice. Let's just go and delete that. This is what's really nice about this. So now I'm just back with my regular old table here. I'd like to create a pivot table out of this. I know I can categorize and things like that, but watch what happens when you use a pivot table. So I just go up here to Pivot Table, and I need to select, much like a chart, what my pivot options are. So I just go here to Pivot Options, and it opens up under Organize here. It opens up my pivot options. So from here, what I can do is I can select what data I want to show. I have date, product, power, units, revenue. So if I go and click on date, another reason why you want to label, if I click on date, watch what happens. There's all my dates there. Now, there's nothing else there. Well, that's because I only have one thing shown. Let's go with revenue. Now, all of a sudden, just like that, I can easily see how much revenue per month, just with a couple of clicks. Units, how many units per month? Power, now it's subcategorizing them. And all I'm doing is just clicking on these. So we can easily just kind of group our data together. We can take this a step further. You're going to see that date, we have columns down here and we have rows. What I do is I can select this little I, and it's grouping it by month. Well, you know what? I'd like to group it by quarter. Select it. Now it's grouping them by quarter. Let's go and group by year. Now it's grouping them. Apparently I only have one year in there. And month. Now it's grouping them by month. That's why it was only one quarter. So just with a couple of clicks here, I'm able to just go and change this all around. And again, much like a chart, all this is just a visual representation of our data here. So this data, if I go and add another month in here and things like that, this will go and reflect that. I go and make a change. All this is just a representation. So I can mess around with this all I want, and it doesn't matter. I'm not going to break my spreadsheet. That's the beauty of something like this. On top of that, what we're able to do is kind of move things around. So I want to have units as columns. So I just drag it down here, and now we can see my units are columns. Well, actually, columns isn't really that good. Let's put it as a row. Just drag it down there. Ah, that's better. Electric and manual. Again, I'm not sure what I was looking for there, but all I did was just kind of like units as columns. Nope, I do not know what that is, but when I go and drag it down here, now I can see what I'm looking at. And again, it's just a representation. You know what? I don't need to see the date. Now the dates are gone. So pretty easy to work with pivot tables. Very powerful to use. All you need to do is just have a standard table. Click on pivot table, follow the steps, and once you do that, you can go and edit these as you want. So very, very, very powerful. I think they added this maybe 2 years ago, the pivot tables. But this was a key piece that was missing for a long time with numbers. All right, the last thing that we're going to look at is, oops, you're seeing my notes there. The last thing we're going to look at is, apparently not showing. There we go. All right, last thing we're going to look at here is how we can import, export, share, and collaborate. So importing and exporting, really very simple to do. If I wanted to export this out as an Excel or a comma separated value file, you just go up under File, Export, and then from here I can export it out as a PDF, Excel, a CSV, TSV, or even numbers, an old 09 document. That's getting pretty old now, but I can export easily as that. I can also share. Oops, it's not the right one. Export is it? Okay. So if I go and just select which one of these, when I select Excel, this is what I was looking for. I can still export, choose what I want. With Excel, I can say 1 per sheet or 1 per table, and I can include a summary worksheet. So the worksheets, which are sheets in numbers, Excel calls them worksheets. If we have multiple worksheets, do we want them to be 1 per sheet or 1 per table? Do we want it to split it all up? And then you can also require password to open. And once I do that, I just click on Save, and it'll save it as an Excel document. I can also go and send this to someone if I wanted to, and it's going to send that Excel document. For the most part, it's going to be pretty good. Going from numbers to Excel, I think, is probably a little safer because Excel does do a lot more than numbers, so it's not like Excel has to do a lot of work, but it's pretty safe to do. But the other thing that you can also do is import. So let's close these. I have these spreadsheets here, and these are Excel spreadsheets. So when I open this up, I'm just going to double click on it. I don't have Excel on my computer. When I double click on it, watch what it does. It opens up in numbers. Now this is a pretty simple spreadsheet. So as we can see, it did everything without any issue. If you had Visual Basic in there and things like that, you might run into a problem. Let's open up this one. Double click on it. This one, we do have a couple warnings. Generally what it is it's formatting warnings. You typically won't have anything outside of that. That particular spreadsheet in Excel used conditional highlighting rules that numbers doesn't support. So the data is still there, it's just that the conditional highlighting isn't, that we had in numbers. Also, links to cells were changed to links to sheets. So when I imported this in here, what it did is it made couple of different sheets and it linked it to those sheets. So it kind of tells you what's going on here. Basic spreadsheets, Excel spreadsheets work pretty good. If it is not a basic spreadsheet and you're using Visual Basic and things like that, you need to be extra cautious. And if it is using Visual Basic, you can't, numbers doesn't support it. But for basic spreadsheets, it supports it just fine. So, and that's all you have to do to import and export. If you want to sync it with iCloud, all you have to do is save the document. So when I save this document, all I have to do is just make sure that I save it to the numbers folder within iCloud. So within iCloud here, we have all these folders, and I have numbers installed. I have a numbers folder. So I can click on this, and there's all of my different documents, which means numbers on my other devices are also going to have access to this. So in my case here, my MacBook Air, which I'm demoing on, when I sit on the couch, this is also the MacBook Air that I use. I have a separate account. Basically, all I do is just make sure that I save anything I'm working on. Keynote works the same way. So when I created this presentation, I just made sure that it was saved in the Keynote folder, and then I can access it from all of my other devices. So that's how we can sync with iCloud. Just put it into the folder, and that's it. Now we can also collaborate. Now with collaborate, which is really kind of nice, let's see here. I have a shared financials. So this particular document here is being shared. So I'm on my demo account here. But if we go over to my iPad, let's see if this works here. I have, whoops, wrong one. All right, well, anyway, I'll show you shortly. On my iPad here, this is my personal iPad. So these are two different accounts. So now what I do is I just go up to share here, and I want to collaborate. So I want multiple people to be able to work on it. Otherwise, I can just send a copy, but I want to be able to collaborate on it. And then I set how I want to set up that collaboration. So I'm just going to go with message, and I'm just going to send this over to myself. Again, a different account. Hit return. Let's see here. Let's go with the numbers. Oh, there it goes. All right. So now it just sent it over to, it's actually updating the spreadsheet. Now it just sent that over to my iPad, different account. So what I'm able to do on my iPad here, I'll show you here. Hopefully, this worked earlier. iPad, open. There it is. So the iPad is set up on DW, my DW account, while this one is set up on my Johnny Appleseed account. Two different people. But if we look, you're going to see that if I make a change on the iPad, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go in here. I'm just working in this area here, and I'm just going to go with 45555. And I hit return. If we look, let's move the iPad over to the other side. If we look on the Mac, there's 45555. So now I go on the Mac and watch in this area here. I just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Hit return. And we should see, oops, put it in the wrong spot. We'll go right there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's putting it there. It should go right into, when I hit tab, it should go right into there. So I'm just going to hit return, tab, and now it's there. It should be there. Return, tab. It worked up here. Now why isn't it working? It's not accepting it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Try again. There it goes. I don't know why that cell is giving me a problem, but you can see it added it there. So, and it's over here. So both of these two people can work on this at the same time. When you are collaborating, it will also tell you who's working on it. So there we can see that Dan Wasink is working on it. And if we go over here to my iPad, we should be able to see when I'm working on something too. So you can see when someone's working on it. If you want to see the activity, you're going to see we have show activity. And I'm just going to move the iPad to the other side again. And here we can see all the activity of that. So when you're collaborating, not only can you see live changes, but we can also see different, what has been changed, the history. And to manage this, I'm just going to go back over to my Mac here. To manage this, you just go back up to this little icon here, and then from here, what I'm able to do is message someone. I can make a FaceTime call, an audio call. I can hide the activity, which is where that orange circle is. I can see who the current participants are. I can see the activity settings. Do I want to be notified when people join, when they make a change? You can set all that up. And I can go and manage the shared spreadsheet. So from here, I can see, who's working on it. Right now, it's set to only people I invite. But let's just say I wanted to invite someone that doesn't have an Apple ID. You do need to have an Apple ID. And you can work on this online through iCloud.com. But let's just say somebody doesn't have an Apple ID. You can also invite anyone with the link. Now, you have to be careful with that. Anyone with the link is going to be able to do what they want with it. If I go like this, and I copy this link, so I just copied it, I'm just going to go into a new private window on my Mac here. So I'm not logged in to iCloud or anything like that. I hit paste. It's going to log me in, and now I can make changes to this. So anyone with the link, we'll just go Steve. Anyone with that link is going to be able to make changes. They don't have to log in. There's no password or anything like that. So you got to be a little careful with that. But it is possible. If you just want to do a simple spreadsheet where you're not too worried about it, you can do that. Just create a link and share it with anybody. And then you can have multiple people work on it at the same time. So that's basically how the collaboration works. It does work with iCloud, so it does have to be saved in your numbers folder on iCloud. The last thing I want to show you is with templates. I meant how you can save your own templates. So let's just say I made some changes to this spreadsheet, and I want to save this as a template. I want to reuse this over and over and over as new documents. To do that, excuse me, to do that, just go up under File, and you can see Save as Template. Select this. I add it to my template chooser, and it names it. Create. And now it just created a brand new spreadsheet based off of what I saved there. So I can close out of this. I'm going to create a new spreadsheet. It needs to be based off of that shared financials. It is not opening up the original. It's making a copy of it. It's a template. Click on it. And now I'm in Untitled. And then it'll save it. So that is basically how we use numbers. It went a little bit long. I was hoping I could get this in. I knew it was going to be tough. But yeah, that's basically how we use numbers. And why I like numbers. I think it's just far easier to use than Excel. And you can make it look really, really nice with that as well. So I see my face is a little jerky, so I'm not sure what's going on there. But I want to thank you, everyone. And for the people that are watching this that are not familiar with me, the way you can help support my efforts is by going over to danstutorials.com. You can become a member. It is a small business. It's just me in a corner office in my house, and I just kind of do these. I like what I do, and you can help support this by going there. You get all the video ad-free. You get access to my AI assistant, and you get access to these trainings that I have on a regular basis. Outside of that, thank you. And I believe I'm going to be having an AMA next week. I don't have it on the calendar yet, but I will be putting it in there probably tomorrow. But next week will be my standard AMA. And I do plan on having videos for this, much shorter videos for this on my site as well. And this is going to be for the iPad and the iPhone and the Mac. I want to get back into the, making these tutorials to help people get acclimated with them. Some of Apple's best software. So outside of that, I am going to stop recording. And again, thank you for your support. And we will see you next week.